I never thought I'd see a stranger's treehouse towering over my mountain property, especially not one with glowing fairy lights. Airbnb guests dragging suitcases across my land, and a handwritten sign at the base that read, "Welcome to Karen's Forest Escape." But the moment I saw it, I knew this wasn't an accident. This was an invasion. My land sits high in the mountains, quiet, private, surrounded by old-growth pines that have been in my family for generations. I go there every few weeks to relax, check on the trails, and make sure no one is trespassing. But recently I started noticing strange things. Footprints on muddy sections of the trail, fresh tire marks where no one should be driving, and a smell. Wood stain, fresh lumber, maybe even smoke from a campfire. I felt something was off. So the next weekend, I went up early before sunrise, hoping to see whatever had been happening. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found. A massive 2-story treehouse stood at the center of my land, built right between 2 towering pines. Not a simple kid's playhouse. This thing had a wraparound deck, tinted windows, a rope bridge, solar lights, a small outdoor shower, and, most shockingly, a metal plaque near the steps that read, "Designed and owned by Karen's Adventures." Karen. I knew exactly who that was. She lived down the mountain, in the nearest HOA community, famous for her endless complaints, fines, and self-given authority. I'd seen her before at meetings, loud, entitled, always having something to say. But even for her, this was extreme. As I stood there in disbelief, a couple walked out of the treehouse holding coffee mugs. The man waved at me like I was a park ranger. "Hey, are you here to check us out? Karen said someone would come by this morning." "Great spot, by the way." My stomach dropped. She wasn't just using my land. She was profiting from it. I checked online. Within minutes I found it. Karen's listing. High-quality photos. Luxury mountain treehouse stay. $280 per night. Over 30 reviews. She had been renting my property for months. But one thing stood out above everything else. The listing location pin was my exact coordinates. That's when the anger hit. She wasn't confused. She wasn't mistaken. She had knowingly built an entire business on land she didn't own. And I knew exactly what my next step would be. The drive back down the mountain felt longer than usual, every turn tightening the anger in my chest. I wasn't just dealing with a trespasser. I was dealing with Karen, a woman who treated rules like decorations and other people's property like unused space. The moment I reached the bottom of the hill, I pulled up her HOA directory profile. There she was, smiling with that same "I run everything" expression. I decided to confront her first, not because I expected honesty, but because I needed to hear her excuse from her own mouth. When I reached her house, she was outside watering plants. Plants she'd probably fined half the neighborhood for not watering properly. She noticed me walking up and rolled her eyes. "Oh, you again? What now?" I kept my voice steady. "Karen, why is there a luxury treehouse on my mountain property?" She didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't gasp. She just smirked. "Oh, that," she said, waving her hand like it was a minor inconvenience. "You weren't using that land, and the community needed more rental options. I'm providing a service." I stared at her in disbelief. "You built on land you don't own." She shrugged. "You should thank me. I increased the area's property value. Besides, guests love it up there. It's harmless." Harmless. She had made nearly $20,000 off my land in the last few months. Reviews, listings, nightly rates, all publicly displayed. "Remove it," I said firmly. "Today." She smirked again, that slow, condescending grin that let me know she had already convinced herself she was right. "I'm not taking down anything," she replied. "If you had a problem, you should have been maintaining your property. Abandoned land falls under community oversight. That's not how land ownership works." "It is if the HOA decides it is," she snapped. "And trust me, I am the HOA." Her arrogance hit a new level. She wasn't just trespassing. She was rewriting laws in her head. But then she said something that changed everything. "If you try anything, just know this. I already talked to some people, and there's no proof the land is yours. Not legally." No proof? That was bold, and completely wrong. My family had owned that land for decades. The deed was safe. The boundaries were registered. My name was on every official record. Karen was bluffing, or worse, hoping I wouldn't fight back. But she underestimated one thing. I don't lose what's mine. The sheriff would make sure of that, and Karen had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I drove straight to the county sheriff's office. If Karen wanted to pretend I had no proof, I would bring every piece of proof I owned directly to the authorities. The receptionist recognized me, small towns are like that, and guided me to Sheriff Dalton, a straightforward man who had dealt with more than his fair share of HOA drama. He listened carefully as I explained everything. The treehouse, the strangers on my land, the rental listing, and Karen's ridiculous claim that she had authority over my mountain property. When I showed him the screenshots of her Airbnb page, his eyebrows shot up. "She's renting it out?" he asked. "For months," I replied. "It's making her thousands. And you never gave permission?" "Never even knew it existed until a few days ago." That was all he needed. Trespassing, illegal construction, operating a business without permits, fraud, possibly tax evasion. The list of violations was long, and every one of them pointed directly at Karen. "All right," he said, standing. "Let's go take a look." We drove up the mountain trail in his patrol truck. As we got closer, the treehouse came into view, lights on, guests relaxing on the deck like it was a resort. Sheriff Dalton shook his head. "This isn't a treehouse," he murmured. "This is a whole illegal lodge." We parked, and the sheriff stepped out first. The couple from before noticed him and stiffened. "Morning," Dalton said firmly. "You folks staying here?" "Yes. Is something wrong?" the woman asked nervously. "Possibly. Who gave you permission to be on this property?" "Karen," the man said instantly. "She told us she owned a private section of the mountain. We paid through her site." Dalton wrote it down. "You're not in trouble. But I'm going to have to ask you to pack up and head out soon. You've been misled." They nodded, embarrassed and confused. Then Karen arrived, marching up the trail, face red, breath heavy, ready to explode. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" she screamed, not at the sheriff, but at me. Dalton turned slowly. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down. This construction is on property that doesn't belong to you." Karen crossed her arms. "Well, I say it does, and this is a community-managed area." "No," Dalton replied. "This land is privately owned, and the deed is valid. You're trespassing. Everything built here is illegal." Karen's confidence cracked. Just a tiny bit, but I saw it. The moment she realized she wasn't winning this time, and the sheriff wasn't done. "Karen," he said, "we need to talk about your business operations. All of them." Her eyes widened in panic. Karen's face turned pale as Sheriff Dalton outlined the charges: trespassing, illegal construction, and operating a short-term rental without permits or tax registration. For months, she had acted with absolute confidence, thinking she could outsmart everyone. But now reality had caught up. "Everything she's built stays," Dalton said, "and she will answer for every violation." Karen's voice cracked as she tried to argue. But I improved the land." "Guests love it. I don't care about your improvements," I said firmly. "This is my property, and you profited from it illegally." Dalton handed her a citation and explained the next steps. She would have to remove the treehouse, pay fines, and possibly reimburse the renters who had booked the property under false pretenses. For the first time, Karen looked completely defeated. The bravado, the entitlement, the smirk, it was gone. She had underestimated the power of proof, persistence, and the law. After the sheriff left, I walked back up to the treehouse. The sunlight glinted off the railing, highlighting just how audacious Karen had been. The deck, the rope bridge, the solar lights, it was impressive, in a way, but it didn't belong to her. Every board, every nail, every light fixture was a reminder that entitlement has limits. I snapped a few photos for my records and started planning how to prevent anything like this from ever happening again. A new sign went up. "Private property. Violators will be prosecuted." I also contacted the county to ensure the land boundaries were clearly posted and registered. This time, there would be no confusion, no loopholes, no excuses. Later that evening, I sat on my porch sipping coffee, looking out at the mountain view. It was quiet again, peaceful, exactly how it should be. The adrenaline had faded, replaced by a sense of satisfaction. Karen had tried to turn my land into her personal business empire, but she hadn't counted on me. On the sheriff or on the law. Sometimes people like Karen think they can rewrite reality to fit their desires. But boundaries, both legal and personal, exist for a reason, and when they cross them, consequences follow. As for Karen, she learned that the law isn't optional, that land deeds aren't suggestions, and that no amount of arrogance can replace accountability. The mountain was mine again. The treehouse would soon be gone. And the lesson was clear. Never let anyone assume your generosity. Patience or ownership is weakness, and so the story ends not with revenge, but with justice, a quiet triumph that echoed across the pines and reminded me why standing up for what's yours matters. Wow, can you believe what Karen tried to get away with? If you loved seeing justice served, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more wild HOA and Karen stories, and drop a comment telling me what you would have done if this happened on your property. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.